Go ahead.
Good afternoon, everyone. Certainly excited about everyone being here with us again today for another webcast as we get involved with another what we consider to be a very important topic. But we certainly want to thank each one of you for joining us today. Um, People of Color Beyond Faith, we are excited about what we're doing. The group is really branching out quite a bit in terms of exposing new thoughts, new attitudes, new approaches, new information being shared in the secular community. Uh, People of Color Beyond Faith is a nonprofit 501c3 organization founded and supported by Black Skeptics Group, Black Free Thinkers, and Houston Black Nonbelievers. Primarily, the People of Color Beyond Faith is organized with the task to place social justice issues at the forefront of the secular community. Uh, what we're doing is laying a foundation that will provide a new movement in the secular community. And within the concept of its core values, we're promoting truth and strive for the betterment of humanity. So this People of Color Beyond Faith is certainly involved in kind of changing the direction of the secular community, and certainly hope that you all are excited about joining us and participating with us in these different conversations. And we are certainly looking forward to our first conference that's going to be held in LA this October 10th and 11th. And certainly hope that you all can join us. And there's going to be much more information about this. You can go to our Facebook page, websites, and a few other places to find out more information about that. We're going to get into the conversation. We're still waiting on a couple of connections. Gary Booker from Atlanta. Hey, what's up, Gary?
What's going on, old friend? Nice to see you again.
Yeah, man, it's been a while, brother. Been a few years have gone past. Certainly glad to see you again, man. So Frank is here, Frank Anderson from Chicago, and we're waiting on a couple other people to join in. But what we'll do is just kind of get started and let's kind of introduce ourselves a little bit to the audience, and then we'll get into the discussion. I'm going to just introduce myself a little bit. Engineer in the Houston area. Been a non-believer, left the church in 2006. Former deacon in a Baptist church, and the task was trying to find more black people, particularly black people in the Houston area, that I could communicate this newfound lifestyle. And it was difficult for a few years, but now there's just a tremendous growth as we have found more and more people in the Houston area that supports this thought process. And so because of that, we have formed an organization here in Houston called Houston Black Nonbelievers. We started it, actually we celebrated kind of today of having our first meeting to get it started. So it's actually a year ago we had our first meeting to start forming the organization. So we had a little celebration in the park to commemorate this. And so we're growing strong as we promote free thought and secularism in the Houston area. Um, from a standpoint of fatherhood, I have a daughter. So she's 27 and 28. I'm sorry, and I'm married. I've been married for almost 34 years, and my daughter basically has grown with me on this journey. And so we'll be talking a little bit of that, of what that means in terms of fatherhood. Gary, what about a little bit about yourself and who you are?
I'm Gary Booker. Also working in the engineering profession. Um, Former educator. I shouldn't say former educator because once an educator, always an educator. I still tutor.
Right.
I still mentor a lot of my former students that I'm still connected with. And but I left education very recently and went back civil engineering. I'm currently a lab manager at a local civil engineering firm here, where we specifically deal with geotechnical stuff. I also am a non-believer. Have been. It's really hard to really put a date on when I officially became a non-believer because it was a transitional, gradual type of thing. And so, but I'm here in the area. I have one daughter who is a year and a half, and so I'm still relatively very new to fatherhood. And as my little one grows, so do I. She's really inquisitive, really curious, and my goal as a father is to make sure that inquisitiveness and curiosity and love and learning stays that way for her entire life.
Okay, good, good. All right, is Frank? Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
All right. I had to step out of the meetup so you guys could, so I wouldn't drown you out with the background there. So, but I heard the question. I guess you was asking. Could you repeat the question again?
Yeah, we just right now just introduce yourself a little bit and then give us your fatherhood status.
Oh, okay, no problem, no problem. Yeah, yeah. My name is Frank, as you guys all know. I've probably been a free thinker since probably the late '70s, early '80s when I first kind of changed over back in those days. I had a professor, African American professor, two professors actually, who were atheists, as well as one of my best friends when I was going to school that was atheist. I come from a background where my grandfather was a Baptist minister, and so religion was deeply rooted in my family. However, when I got to college, I met some people. I started doing my own research, and I eventually became an atheist over a period of years. I am a father, of course. I have three kids. I like to say three kids. I acquired a daughter through marriage. I have a stepdaughter, but again, she's my daughter. I don't call her step. So I have a daughter, two daughters, and a son. I'm happy to say that all three of them have actually graduated from college. They all know that their father is a free thinker, and which created some very interesting say discussions at the dinner table. But I never tried to say force them into being what I am. I just open their eyes to everything. At least I try to open up to everything. This religion, that religion, as well as atheism. So I guess in a
Yeah.
nutshell, I'm a system. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. What do you do now? What's your give us
Oh,
your
yeah.
profession?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm getting a little wordy here. I'm a mainframe systems programmer. I've been working with computers for over 30 plus years. And that's pretty much what I do. I'm an old computer guy. We throw some.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Good. Good. Like I said, we were waiting on a couple other people to join us. So hopefully they'll get connected here pretty soon. Um, to kind of get into the conversation, here's something that I found the other day. Um, it says that 1 in 4 children in the United States is being raised by a single parent, a percentage that has been on the rise and is higher than what we found in other developed countries. And of the 27 industrialized countries studied by the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, the U.S. had 25.8% of children being raised by a single parent, compared with an average of 14.9% across the other countries. In the African American community, 72% of black children are raised in a single parent home, which means from most of our experiences and what we probably know is that the majority of that in terms of single parent home is mostly single black women. Now, here's something I found from a quote from Will Smith. He says, "There's so much negative imagery of black fatherhood. I've got tons of friends that are doing the right thing by their kids, and are doing the right thing as a father? And how come that's not as newsworthy? So, in that perspective, how do you relate to that? When you hear that type of information, or you hear those type of statistics, and normally, or most of the time in our media, we hear so much negativity regarding black fathers or the absence of black fathers. So when you're talking about that, how do you put that in perspective, and how would you take that to define what it means to be a father? Gary, you want to try that?
Sure. Um, well, you know, at this stage of my life, I really kind of take the whole single parent thing from a variety of different perspectives. Um, because the picture that is the situation with single parents in the United States is never as simple as the media makes it out, especially when it comes to black parents. And one of the things that caught a lot of people by surprise was that there was a recent study done by the CDC this year that showed that black men are actually quite dedicated fathers. That the situation is not as bleak as once thought, and that in terms of time, in terms of quality time spent with children, black fathers actually spend more quality time with their children than fathers of any other American ethnicity. Now, it is true that there are several there are problems with the absence of fathers. I mean, we can't deny that. It and it's not confined of that in our own normal life, in our own neighborhoods. And I mean, in terms of me personally, it affects me in the sense that I was raised by my father. I came into fatherhood being determined to raise my own child, and not allowing my child to be raised without a father, because I had a father, and my father was actually quite involved in my life, and I'm very grateful for the type of parent that he has been, and he continues to support me in my own parenthood. Um, I think, just on a personal level, I think I think every black father should strive to defy the stereotype, because there certainly is a stereotype there, um, and should strive to be devoted fathers. And I also think that as a community, we do need to recognize that the media is not as diverse in its opinions as a society that values free speech should be, especially when it comes to how black men are represented. And we have to take everything that the media presents about black men, particularly black fathers, with a grain of salt.
Mm-hmm.
And my daughter agrees. Say hello.
Good.
Say
So why would you so in terms of your kind of in summary, in a sentence, so what does it mean to be a father or to be a dad? What does that mean to you?
To me, it means so many things. It means a teacher, a protector, a provider, and not just a provider of material things, but a provider of lessons, provider of love. You know,
Right.
I try to make a point to not leave this house without kissing my daughter goodbye, and letting her know that Daddy just adores her, and and that she's at the center of my universe, and and also
Gary, did we lose you? I think we lost Gary temporarily. Gary. Hey, Gary. Okay, let's. Hey, Frank.
Yes,
Are
can you
you?
hear me?
Yeah. What do you think about that? If when you look at the overall picture in terms of the the way the media portrays us, black fathers in the United States, what the statistics generally point out in terms of negativity, and this high rate of single parents, and most of it is more from a black single woman's perspective. When you hear that, how do you respond? What's your perspective and what's your response to that?
Well, my response is I wonder what statistics they're looking at because I look back at my life and my father was very involved in my life. All my uncles were very involved in their lives. All the friends of my family were very involved in their life. And I continued on with my daughters and son. I was very involved in their lives. So I like the other gentleman was saying, you have to take those statistics with a grain of salt. You have to really sit down and break down those statistics and see how they're coming up with that, because as I have to agree with him, I believe that black fathers are probably more into the lives of their kids than any other group, because they have to be, considering some of the problems that we have in our community. So I don't
Hmm.
I don't just take those statistics. Like I said, my father was there, I was there, and I believe my kids will be there as well when they have kids in the future.
Oh, okay, good. So what does it mean to you to be a father? Being a father, what does
Well,
that mean?
what does it mean to me is willing to almost die if you have to for your kid. I had the opportunity a couple of weeks ago to speak at a graduation, and one of the things you do for your kids is you do whatever it takes. If it means you have to work a job, two jobs, or three jobs, or whatever it takes to get that kid through school or get them to school, you do it, whatever it takes. So to be a father means if you have to put your life on the line, whatever it takes to make them successful. I mean, this is your name or whatever that's going to be carried on to generations, and this is going to be your reflection. So in that alone, should want you, or you should want to, have the best for that kid or make the best for that kid. So that for fatherhood, it's putting your life on the line, whatever it takes to make that kid successful.
Do you think the role of the father is substantially different from the role of a mother?
I don't try to segregate those things. I think it depends on the situation. Because just like you said, or someone said, that we have a high single parent situation where you have majority of mothers. So I think sometimes you have to take on a motherly role or a fatherly role. And to give you an example, my wife has a job that takes her out of town 3 times a week. Well,
Hmm.
when my daughter was coming up, I had to sometimes have a conversations about her about what uh, female issues. Of course, I would ask my wife, but she wasn't there to answer. I had to answer that question. I mean, in terms of if you want to say traditional roles, I don't think it's a traditional role. Where, for example, if you had to get your kid prepared for school, you do their hair, whatever. I did whatever it took. I mean, I would get up, do her hair, and whatever. She had female issues in terms of biological issues, we talked about that too. So my daughter and I, or my daughters and I, as well as my son, if there's an issue, they felt very comfortable coming to me or my wife, and it didn't matter. It wasn't a female or a male issue. It was a human issue.
Any thoughts on that, Gary? Do you see, is it a major difference between a father and a mother in
Absolutely.
terms of roles?
Mm, I think we could definitely. There is too much of a separation in terms of what parents do. I think, don't get me wrong, I'm a firm advocate to parent household. I don't look down upon single parents, by the least. You know, I think you do what you have to new single parent house, and
If we are,
boundary as to
Gary,
what
did we lose you? I think
father
we
should
lost
do,
you
I think,
again.
is more along the lines of what a parent should do. I think both parents.
Okay. Well,
Hopefully, I'm back. I was saying,
one of the things that's
I think both.
pretty okay, I can hear you now. Right.
Okay. So I think both parents should be nurturers and both parents should be disciplinarians. And I think both parents should.
Okay, we're losing you again, Gary. Well, one of the things that's interesting is what's probably pretty common is um, we tend to see and hear this a lot that um, single parents can't do a thorough job. Single mothers can't do a complete job of parenting, nor can single fathers. And so when you look at that challenge or that concept and try to evaluate the challenge of a father and the role that it plays in terms of parenting a boy to prepare him for manhood, is there something in particular that a mother can't provide? Or in regards to bringing up a young lady, is there something a father can't provide in place of a mother when you look at it like that? Frank?
I would say even if you had a two-parent family, it's always something that you can do better. And as I was coming up, there's sometimes when mom and dad had to both be at work. So that's what this so-called village concept comes into play. And I think it takes, even if you do have two parents, I think it takes more than a parent or two parents to actually raise kids. I mean, it's an old cliche. They say it takes a village. I do truly believe it takes a village. Because given some of the situations now in terms of our work schedules and stuff along those lines, sometimes you may be married, but you still don't have necessarily a two-parent household. So I think I don't know. I hope I didn't lose the question here, but uh, I don't. I believe that you can raise a kid regardless if you're a single parent, two parents, and it doesn't matter. It's a collective effort that raises these kids.
Yeah. I think one of the things that's always a very uh, kind of obvious point, or well, maybe it's not obvious, but in relation to let's look at sports, right? Let's look at professional sports, college sports, and when they're interviewing a lot of these athletes, most cases um, they are when they are given the opportunity to express appreciation to a parent, most of that appreciation goes out to a mother, and in most cases, no mention is made of the father. So, do you think that's a reality check in terms of statistics, and that's one of the things that kind of verifies the single parent households?
So that want me to answer? Or,
Yeah, because I think
uh,
we lost Gary again.
okay. Well, I don't know if it's necessarily a reality check. I'm a numbers guy. I was a math guy. How many people actually get interviewed and how many people actually have parents? I bet the majority of people are not interviewed on TV. And if you really dig down deep, athletes may be some special type people because they have special skill sets. But if you look at the whole the whole picture, if you look at the whole community and you did a cross-section study, I would not be surprised that fathers would come out just as good. I can't believe what I see in the media. I mean, I guess maybe I'm biased in terms of the way I was brought up. Like I said, I had so many good examples with uncles and aunts and extended family members, friends of families. I just I don't see that per se. So, and again, maybe I'm clouded on that issue. So I don't see that.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I think that the what we see in terms of sports and celebrities, this is not reality. This is celebrity culture, and these are not true reflections of what our community looks like. And it doesn't bear out the statistics at all. But it is a fascinating thought that so frequently that that's what takes place. So the acknowledgement is always given to the mother as if the father is not in existence, which a lot of times kind of disturbs me when I'm hearing this stuff. But I have to get beyond that, obviously. But let's move to another direction. Um, so in regards to this this life beyond belief, or transitioning beyond belief, and the way you were trying to anticipate fatherhood and being a parent, how did you deal with that perspective, or how did you deal with um, how you think this would impact your children by not being a non-believer?
I can answer that again too. I was very cautious with my daughter, especially. I was very cautious with her
Right.
because. Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, right. I can.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I was very cautious when she was in the early middle school years, as well as even high school. Few select people knew exactly of my atheism, my freak thought there. They knew about it, but I didn't really go out and broadcast it too much. Like again, as I said earlier, the most important person in my house was my kid. And if I had to sit back and step back a little bit, I did that. But you can bet one thing: my daughter knew what I was, but I was going to protect her. That was the most important. My son and my other daughter, I wanted to protect them. So I was a little cautious about it. But now that she's out there in the professional world, I feel a little bit more free to say what I have to say. But yeah, I was protecting her. She's the most she and my daughters and son. They were the most important asset to me. So I did what I had to do to protect
Yeah.
them. Hmm.
Yeah. Did they? So at the point of view, I'm trying to get the timing.
Okay.
So had you moved into atheism before you had children,
Oh yeah,
or
yeah,
was it
yeah.
after? Oh,
Oh no,
okay.
before, way before, even before I got married. I was yeah, I was an atheist
Oh,
from way back. Yes.
okay. All right. So I guess did you have any fears about it in
Yeah.
regards
Oh,
to even having kids?
that's a good point. I really didn't have any fears about that. To be totally honest with you, although as we as I started looking and evaluating things, some of the craziness that I see on that side, it is somewhat fearful. I was afraid because my daughter actually went to a private school. She went to a Catholic school, and that's another story. And so I had to be kind of
Yeah.
cautious, and I was somewhat fearful of letting the nuns and the priests know that. Yes, I didn't want them to take it out on her.
Yeah.
So I was very cautious about
Oh,
that.
okay. Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, in my situation, all of this was taking place, after my daughter was basically moving out of junior high, moving into high school. So the major transition in my case took place after she went to college. So I thought about how difficult it may have been for me to try to explain that more to her when she was younger. And
Okay.
also, I think more in terms of things that are associated with being religious. For instance, like the fact that I decided that that means I didn't have to. I no longer needed to celebrate Christmas or any of the religious holidays.
Hmm.
So I thought uh, deeply about the timing from the standpoint of suppose I would have tried to take that away from her when she was 10, 12, 13 years old, when all of her other friends were so deeply ingrained into the celebration aspect. So I do have I guess I do have a little appreciation for the timing
Hmm.
that I went through that when she was more mature,
Hmm.
and particularly she was at a college level where she didn't have to explain that too much in depth,
Right.
and I spent a great deal of time sharing a lot of information with her to help her understand why I was moving in the direction that I was moving.
Well,
And fortunately, she's I mean, she's just as close with me on this journey as we have been throughout our lives, and I'm so excited about that.
right. And I think that's wonderful in that situation. But because I'm an atheist and a free thinker, I didn't necessarily take those holidays away from her. To me, I treat Christmas no different than Valentine's Day or any other day. It's anytime I get an opportunity to get together with family, that to me outweighs the holiday or whatever holiday you want to call it.
Hmm.
So I didn't really. My wife, who is I would say, I don't think she's a strong Christian per se. She still believes, and so she still brought the Christmas aspect and stuff like that. But also, if you go back and look at some of our tapes, and we taped all these days, I always say on those tapes, yeah, this is okay. We're together. This is family. Daddy's an atheist. Mom is a Christian, but that's okay. You're gonna be what you want to be, and so I never try to get in her way to do that. So, but in terms of holidays, a holiday is a holiday. You treat that as a time to get together with family. You call it whatever you want to call it. You can call it the spaghetti holiday if you want to call it whatever.
Yeah, I got you.
Hmm.
Okay, well, I see we have George has joined us. Can you hear me, George? Hey, hey, George, can you hear me? I can see you, but I can't hear you. Yeah, no, I'm not getting any audio from you.
All right, George, what you may need to do is turn your microphone on. Do you see that? Do you have a headset? Yeah, we can't hear you. Your mic is off. So go and look at your volume control over there next to your clock. Click that and see if your mic is on. Yeah, we can't hear George. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, he just muted himself. He just unmuted himself. Say
George,
something
can
else. Oh man. Alrighty then.
yeah, we can't. We're not getting George.
Yeah, no feedback.
Right. Um, okay.
So
All right. Well, we'll just continue. Frank, I think the it's interesting when you look at this and looking at the transition part and the way in which you anticipated how it would impact your fatherhood or impact your kids. The planning aspect of looking at your how your kids would be influenced and the way they would present this information in the community and with other friends, relatives, and how did they share that information that their father was an atheist? How do you think they were talking about that?
Uh, Very selectively. Okay, some of her closer friends they knew, but
Right.
and I don't know how good kids keep secrets, but her closer friends they knew. They'll laugh about it, they'll snicker about it, but beyond that, it would not go beyond those close friends. Like for example, I coached a basketball team way back in the days, and I would say only a couple of kids on there knew because they were very close friends to my family and close friends to my daughter. So it was very selective on who she let know and who she would say, well, my daddy is a atheist, and they'll laugh about it. She would laugh about it, but she still said, I love my daddy.
Yeah. Well, did you give her those instructions in terms of how to deal with that?
I don't know if I gave her those instructions. No, I don't think I gave those instructions at all. It's just, I think with peer pressure that she was dealing with. I mean, going to, and, maybe it was my fault because with peer pressure, she went to a parochial school for the first 6 years of her schooling. Then after that, she went to a public school. So I really didn't give her any instructions. I just basically just told her to be just I don't know, what did I tell her? I said just go to school, and I focused on the schoolwork. I didn't really focus on that. I said, baby, I said, go out there, give me the best possible grades you can give me, and make it a little bit better than that. That's what I used to always tell her. So I didn't really didn't emphasize it. I think if we keep making it like it's such a big thing to be this way, then it becomes a tough thing for people to swallow. But if people see that we're part of the community and we're just as normal as they are, then it becomes part of the community, I think, a little bit easier.
Yeah. So what would you consider to be the most difficulties, the most challenges associated with being a father, being a secular father? What would you say the most difficult aspect of that is?
Most difficult aspects probably is if you do go to maybe a family dinner or something like that, and people want to step up and pray, and I don't pray, and people look at you kind of strange, and if they laugh for the first few times, they get used to it, and they say, oh, he's just a strange one over there. So and that's one of the things that was difficult, more or less extended family outing, so to speak, in terms of going out and dealing with situations like that with people praying before dinner and stuff like that. But beyond that, my daughter really did not talk about it. I don't know subconsciously if she was ashamed of her father, but I don't think she was. But she really never made that a major subject in her conversation.
Did you ever get did you ever get the question from any relatives or friends in regards to how this was a bad influence on your kids, you being an atheist? Did you ever
Yes,
get that?
absolutely, and that's when you go into the education and you start talking about who was an atheist and who was a Christian. And so I started saying, okay, well, you want to say that I'm ignorant, then you say Asa Fuller Randolph is ignorant. If you want to say that I'm ignorant, then you say Billy R. Rustin is ignorant, and so is W. Du Bois, and I can go down the whole list, Lorraine Hansberry, Paul Robeson. So we can go down the list and we can say these people are ignorant if you want to, but I think they would be absolutely wrong about that. So, and once you start educating people like that, I mean, to give you an example, about 3 years ago, I went to a Kwanzaa function. I have a cousin who's assistant state's attorney in the state of Illinois, didn't know about Asa Fuller Randolph and his 1941 possible march that he was going to have in Washington. He didn't believe me. He had to look it up on Google and YouTube right then and there. And it's, oh my goodness, you're right.
Right.
So it's an opportunity to educate, to let people know that, we're good people. We're not bad people. We're good people. And not to say that all of us are good people, but we're no different than anybody else. We fit right into the norms of society. You're gonna have good and bad atheists and good and bad Christians. So don't treat us any differently. Just accept us.
Yeah, yeah. I think one of the things that was pretty compelling to me, though, is this transition for me was such a great opportunity to share so much more new information to my daughter,
Mm-hmm.
and it was just it just I embraced the opportunity. It was an enhancement in terms of how much more we could talk about, how many more historical people we could share, and then I think it was so enlightening to be able to share with her so much of the background information I was able to uncover regarding Christianity, the Bible, and religion in general. So it just opened up a new world for us, and I think my daughter really embraced that. She had a difficult time, obviously making the transition
Mm-hmm.
because of the fact that I mean, just how common it is in the black community.
Mm-hmm.
But with her being in college to deal with this, she had a chance to see it a lot differently and to explore things even in college, that some things she didn't tell me that she was doing while she was there.
Mm-hmm.
So she had a chance to really reinforce some of the
Mm-hmm.
information I was sharing with her, and I
Mm-hmm.
learned about that a few years later.
Right.
So the aspect of I think what happens a lot of times is that we really don't appreciate how much education you can provide just being just being a regular father and having an interest in sharing information with your kids.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you look at the other aspects, um, and try to understand what those challenges are, there is uh, the peer pressure in terms of what your kids are going to experience and how you relate to that peer pressure, and then the pressure that you get in your circle, and how does that affect your relationship with your kids. So I think we look at two different things here, because your kids are going to deal with it in a certain way, and then you are constantly dealing with it, that changes regularly because of the different people that you run into. So when you look at the aspect of how challenging it is to be a secular parent, or and particularly to be a black father, it's very interesting to think about this stuff. And the challenge of fatherhood is difficult anyway. But we have so many things that influences us negatively, that we have to try to put in perspective in terms of how we're going to do this and be a good father. So, George, are we getting you? Can you hear us?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Oh, hey, yeah. Welcome. um, do you uh, do you want to chime in a little bit and just talk a little bit, since we got you on audio? Did you hear some of our questions and what we were discussing?
I sort of caught the last one, but not all of it. No.
Okay. Um, the last question we were talking about, what are the challenges of being a father, being a secular father? But since you're online now, could you just kind of go into a little bit about what fatherhood means to you, and just give us a little bit of your background in terms of your secular experience and how you related that to your children?
So interestingly, I'm from New York, and so like a lot of people in New York, probably in the Northeast. I mean, I sort of grew up religious. I was born Episcopalian. My dad was Episcopalian. My mother, my parents then separated, and then we sort of became Baptist. So I was baptized the second time in a Baptist church, but it wasn't, a Bible thumping kind of thing. And then I married somebody from Mississippi, which then brought the whole southern part of the United States. And sort of the difference is, do you go to church? I was reading this somewhere. Do you go to churches in the north, and in the south is, which church do you go to? So
Right.
she's Catholic, But my kids and so I moved my family to California before they were born. So they grew up in California, but I said, okay, my wife's more zealous about it than I am. So we've been to the Catholic Church, and which is very similar to Episcopalians, except that priests can marry. But because I'm an engineer, or maybe because of lots of different influences of the Northeast, I was always a questioning kind of person, and so I would say there was no coming out for me because any of my mother's family or my wife's family or my family, I was constantly talking about the conflict of Christianity as we knew it and the Egyptian religions and the whole African history that's kept from a lot of people in the United States. And so all of that was sort of mixed in together. I don't treat religion separately from history. And so in my case, it was intertwined with history. While my kids were growing up and going through all the Catholic activities, I would say, okay, well, that was nice, and let me tell you what really happened and who's really behind these stories. And so they grew up with sort of both sides. They grew up with a semi-philosophical side that you would get from church, and then I would talk to them about what happened in human history and how that relates to just history itself. So for them, I think it was more of a gradual thing. They knew, well, they probably don't know whether I'm an agnostic, an atheist, a spiritual person, whatever. I don't really give myself a label in front of them. It's really just a constant intellectual challenge for you to decide how truth should be determined, and then what do you want to believe. So one of them goes to church, two of them will go, and their mother says go. Then we'll have conversations on Sundays. It's sort of like that.
What do you how do you see fatherhood? Do you see it being independent from motherhood? And do you see father? What do you see as the primary responsibility of a father? So if someone says, what does it mean? What does it take to be a good father? How would you answer that?
The older version of me would say something different than the 20-year-old version of me.
Okay.
The 50-year-old. From my kids' point of view, I would, and I've told them, always be there for you no matter what. That I want to be the rock in my family. So that's emotional, intellectual, financial, that sort of thing. That no matter what they do or say, I'm going to be there for them as a man. I'm going to show them the male side of humanity, and my wife will show the female side of humanity. I was mostly raised by my mother, but I did have my father around until I was 13, so I don't have this issue of that we may have in our community of, what's the difference between men and women in raising the children. There is a difference. I think for me, as a father, it's to show them the male side of humanity, to be a rock, to be a guide, to be the foundation which they can stand.
You see the roles being different. Can a father provide the necessary guidance and education for a daughter, and can a mother provide the necessary guidance and education for a son?
Yes, I only have daughters, so there's that.
Right.
My mother only had 2 boys, so it's fun. It's an interesting question because I saw both. What my mother did is she only knew half of the story, so she got her brothers. She has 3 brothers. She got her uncles involved in my raising, because my father sort of had manic depressive kind of thing, so he could not continue being a father after a certain point of time. So my mother understood she was not a male. She didn't know how to completely raise a male. She knew how to do the nurturing part, but that part that's differentiated from a man versus a woman in society, she knew she needed some help. For me, I have my wife to handle all sort of female activities, and I sort of handle things that are related to what I consider male activities, getting them maybe to understand boys and men and their biological differences.
Okay. All right. So you see, there are differences that we have to acknowledge in terms of the men and women roles, things like that.
Yeah, I don't want to get a little bit too hung up in roles because that is very generational. I would say I might term it as careabouts. What do I care about that's different than my wife? What do women care about that's different than men? And there are things that are different than there are differences between. Now, obviously, there are some women who care about male things and some men who care about female things. But you know, I think there's some differences just looking around at the world. So.
Okay. Gary? Did we have Gary back? Okay, I don't think so. All right, before we kind of summarize this, do we have any questions from the audience or any kind of feedback, any comments that we need to acknowledge? Okay, I don't see anything. So what we'll do for the next few minutes, Frank. So what's your advice, man? What would you say to a young brother that you just met, and he just became a free thinker, and he is pondering fatherhood. What would be your advice?
Well, my advice is don't get caught up in the Joneses, so to speak. Do what you think is best for your kids, and to me that is, and because I'm education centered, do whatever it takes for your kid to have the best education, because through education all things can be learned. So I would say don't worry about what other people say. Worry about what's necessary for your kids to be successful.
Okay, George, what about you? What would be your advice?
For a new father?
Yeah, for a guy he's a secular. He's secular. He's declared himself non-theist, atheist, humanist, something that means that he's no longer influenced by religion and organized religion. But he's yet to be a father. But he's pondering that concept. He's pondering that position of being a father. So, knowing how things are in our society at this moment, what would be your advice to him to be a super duper adequate father as a non-believer? What would you tell him?
I would say you should have some moral structure, and that there's the humanist belief system. I've seen that. They've created a philosophical superstructure. People have been on this planet thinking about this for a long time. Some have turned into thinking about it from a deist point of view. And then there's the humanist ideals that come from the observation of, sort of the do no harm, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, and find a way to have a philosophical center, and that philosophical center hopefully is productive and positive, fruitful, and once you've centered yourself on that, that's what you will be able to teach from, because you will be a guide for your kids whether you like it or not. You will be teaching them because they will be watching you. Whatever you do and whatever you don't do, you will be their teacher.
Okay, all right, good. Well, I think we are as non-believers, free thinkers, secularists, we are challenged in our neighborhood or in our community, particularly in the black community, with this worldview, and to address it in a decent conversation and to demonstrate a lifestyle that's can be rewarding. That can be a guiding light for other people, and certainly can be utilized for us to be mentors for other young men. I think it's very important and very significant in terms of our response to this. So we certainly need to have more conversation regarding this. Certainly talk about it with other people in your organizations, and I hope we can have the more conversation about this. But I really do appreciate finding this quote from Will Smith because it is very appropriate. Here it is again. He says, "There's so much negative imagery of black fatherhood. I've got tons of friends that are doing the right thing by their kids and doing the right thing as a father. And how come that's not as newsworthy?" So I think he's got a good point. So there's many of us that are doing the right things and demonstrating ways in which you can be quality, adequate, very good fathers. But the news people don't want to talk to us or talk to those type of individuals. They rather focus on the negative side. But once again, I'd like to appreciate Frank, Gary, George for participating with us. Certainly appreciate you guys sharing your thoughts on this important conversation um, as we try to move secularism and humanism and the non-belief into a more positive uh, perspective and guide the thoughts and help modify our society a little bit. And these are the type of things that we have to demonstrate. So once again, thank you all so much for being part of this conversation. And to the audience, thank you all for listening. Certainly hope we get some feedback. Please share comments. And keep in mind, People of Color Beyond Faith is growing, and we certainly would like to encourage you to participate, join in with us. Please be aware of some of the upcoming events. Go to our Facebook page, website, and also like to remind you about our conference coming up in LA. Um, and that'll be October 10th and 11th, and certainly hope you can join us out there in LA as we have a very good time talking more about social justice and the way it can be impacted in our community from a secular perspective. So we certainly thank you so much and have a great evening.